Ontario has voted, and it's 4 more years for McGuinty.
There's chaos at Canada's largest airport, and the puck dropped in impressive fashion at the Leafs' home opener. Humber News starts now.
Hello, it's Friday, October 7th. Welcome to Humber News, coming to you from the Broadcast Center here at the North Campus. I'm Kathleen Finley. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Nicole Bogart. Ahead on our show, we'll have all your news, sports, and entertainment highlights, as well as your 5-day weather forecast. But first, Kathleen has our top story.
A big victory last night for Dalton McGuinty and the Ontario Liberals as they returned to power for their 3rd straight term. It was a seesaw kind of night as Liberals flirted between a minority and majority government. 2 hours after the polls closed, the Liberals walked away 1 seat short a majority. The Liberals now hold a total of 53 seats. Tim Hudak and the Conservatives have 37, and the New Democratic Party sits at 17. The Liberals suffered a loss of 19 seats at Queen's Park, while both opposition parties made gains. The Conservatives picked up 12, and the NDP gained 7. What's interesting is how close the popular vote between the two leading parties was. The Liberals won 38% of the popular vote, and the Conservatives were right behind at 35%. The NDP had 23%. It was a busy night for Humber TV News as we covered local results in all 3 ridings where Humber campuses are located. Our coverage begins with Reem Jazar in Etobicoke North.
Cheers erupted at the news that Dr. Shafiq Qadri had been elected in Etobicoke North with 49% of the vote. In a riding populated mostly by working-class families and immigrants, Dr. Qadri says he has a lot to offer his community as a politician and a medical professional.
And I think it's important to have someone who has first-hand knowledge in a field like healthcare, which is always at the number 1 or 2 spot in terms of top agendas. Because, you know, God knows we have enough lawyers or accountants in the legislature.
Campaign manager Peter Murphy says one of Qadri's main priorities is to further develop the infrastructure of Etobicoke North, one of Ontario's poorest ridings.
Well, we're gonna continue with our platform that was moving forward, and we certainly have moved forward in Etobicoke North with the expansion to Etobicoke Humber Hospital, and also the $64 million expansion into Humber College, and we're just going to continue with that.
Like Premier Dalton McGuinty, Dr. Shafiq Qadri is heading into his 3rd term in office. He says he remains undecided as to whether or not he will run for a 4th term. For Humber News, I'm Reem Jazar.
I'm Lisa Narain reporting here from the Etobicoke Lakeshore riding. Etobicoke Lakeshore Liberal candidate Laurel Broughton is all smiles after winning a 3rd consecutive term. The Liberal platform was very education-focused, and Broughton says the McGuinty government will follow through with the promise of a 30% cut in tuition fees for post-secondary students.
No, we're very clear on wanting to ensure that Ontario students and families earning less than $160,000 can go to post-secondary. And
Broughton won the riding by a margin of 50.8%, winning just over 22,000 votes. She was in high spirits as she met with supporters and posed for photos at her celebration party.
Give yourselves a hand because the victory at Etobicoke Lakeshore is yours.
The evening was a family affair as Broughton's twin sons Zachary and Ryan joined her on stage halfway through her speech. In the last government, Broughton served as the Minister of Children and Youth Services. There is no indication yet if she will be making a return to the McGuinty cabinet. Melissa Narain, Humber News.
I'm here in Orangeville at Sylvia Jones's campaign headquarters where she just won for Dufferin-Caledon. It's a sea of blue, and let's just say I'm standing out in my yellow cardigan. The Conservatives have held their seat here in Dufferin-Caledon for the 2nd consecutive provincial election. Sylvia Jones won with 47.3% of the votes, a sizable margin over her Liberal opponent.
People looked at what I'd been doing in the last 4 years as their MPP and said they liked what I had been speaking out for, representing Dufferin-Caledon, and I think they endorsed that and said, we want you to continue.
Jones' supporters held a small gathering at her campaign headquarters in Orangeville. Even though she's an opposition member of her constituents, hope she can do something about the proposed mega quarry.
And myself, I think that could be very bad for the water, as it's the headwaters, and the water table's going down, and I'm a little nervous, so I'm glad that she's going to speak out against that.
And it's also going to mean you're going to have a very staunch defender of the quarry movement against it in southern Ontario, because it really will just kill the water in southern Ontario.
Jones is also promising to continue the push for funding to get Humber Orangeville students into a permanent facility.
We have, we, as you well know, have been waiting a very long time for some activity to get a campus moving forward in the riding. Hopefully, we will continue to fight for it. It's a matter of whether we'll see any action on behalf of the government.
Residents in Dufferin-Caledon maintain their true blue status as Conservatives take on another win. For Humber News, I'm Kelly Hall.
The long weekend is off to a miserable start for thousands of travelers. An illegal protest by security workers at Pearson Airport is creating bedlam. Lines that are hours long, delayed departures, and baggage issues. Passengers say the timing of the job action is deliberate. Even free refreshments weren't enough to calm delayed travelers at Pearson today. There is no end in sight for the check-in line at Terminal 1, and this is only the first lineup. There are also major delays to clear security. Travel days are notoriously tiring, but many of these people in line are already exhausted, even before boarding their airplane and taking off.
I don't want to lose my flight. I want to get home, and nervous that this will take too long.
A colleague of ours flew out last night and gave us the warning that we should get here about 4 hours before our flight.
Obviously, I've never seen Pearson like this. This is really bananas. It's Thanksgiving weekend. They should have a little bit more love for us. They should have a little bit more heart.
Pearson officials confirmed a Work to Rule campaign is responsible for the mayhem. The security workers are employed by Garda, a company contracted by the Canadian Air Transport Security Authority. There is no word on exactly how many Garda workers there are at Pearson or how long the job action may continue.
People hitting the roads this long weekend will notice more police cars than usual on the highways. Operation Impact kicks off today with the OPP and Toronto Police targeting bad behavior. This includes impaired, aggressive, and distracted drivers. The campaign coincides with the OPP's Fall Seatbelt campaign running until October 17th. There will also be some closures for Thanksgiving Monday. LCBO outlets, beer stores, as well as banks, government offices, and libraries will not be open. Most supermarkets and malls will be closed for business, and there will not be mail delivery. The TTC and GO Transit will run on holiday schedules. If you must shop, the Eaton Centre, Vaughan Mills, Square One, and Pacific Mall will be open with reduced hours.
Some encouraging economic news. Statistics Canada says the unemployment rate has reached its lowest level since 2008, coming in at 7.3%. It's another sign that the Canadian economy is not doing too badly in the face of a gloomy outlook globally. StatsCan also says 61,000 jobs were created last month. They were mostly full-time and in the public sector.
A Liberal MP says a Canadian citizen, his wife, and 2 young children have been jailed in Saudi Arabia. Toronto area MP Jerry Karagiannis is demanding to know why the federal government hasn't done more to free them. He says the family was picked up in Saudi Arabian city of Jeddah by police 2 weeks ago. The family had been living in the region for about 4 years. Canada's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs says Canadian officials are working to confirm the family has been detained and to make contact with them.
Canada's law against assisted suicide is being challenged in the BC Supreme Court. Susan Bracker from Barrie, Ontario says she watched her husband die a horrible death and was then herself diagnosed with cancer. Bracker says she does not want to die like her husband, but she says Canadian law infringes on her rights. Suicide itself is not a crime in Canada, but physician-assisted suicide is illegal.
10 people are suffering various injuries after an explosion erupted at the Co-op crude oil refinery in Regina. A pipe leaking diesel fuel and hydrogen gas caught fire and exploded yesterday. However, no harmful chemicals were released. The company's vice president says it will cut the plant's production of diesel by 25%.
The U.S. State Department is holding its final public hearing today on TransCanada's controversial Keystone XL pipeline. If approved, the project would begin in Alberta and span across 6 U.S. states. The controversial project has become a political lightning rod for the Obama administration in the face of attacks from American environmentalists. Thousands of demonstrators are slated to march to the building where the hearing will be held today.
When we come back, we'll have more news from around the country and the world. Sarah Cresswell will have the sports news, and we'll have your weather forecast with Matt LaRue.
It's Thanksgiving weekend, but with temperatures like this, you'll feel more like going to a beach than going to a pumpkin patch. I'll be back with your weather for today and your 5-day forecast after this.